So in a graph of a trigonometry function, some important observation we have seen. One is the maximum value of sine theta will be 1, and minimum value of sine theta is -1. Both sine theta and cos theta, maximum value will be 1 and a minimum value will be -1. This is one point. And another one is, if you take the first quadrant, sine theta value increases from 0 to 1, cos theta decreases from 1 to 0. And if you take 0 to 45 degree, 0 to 45 degree, in this interval, 0 less than theta less than 45 degree, cos theta will be greater than sine theta. This from 45 to 90, 45 less than theta less than 90 degree, sine theta will be more than cos theta. Sine theta is more than cos theta. These are the things. Okay, fine. Now the third graph, tan x. Sin x, I told you, sin x and cos x both are continuous. Both are continuous. But the tan x is not continuous. There is some break you can see. It's a graph you can see here, no? The graph will be, this is y-axis and this is x-axis. And the 0, then pi. Tan pi by 2 will be, you know that one. Tan pi by 2 means sin pi by 2 by cos pi by 2. Right? Therefore, the graph will be here, this one. So, tan pi by 2 will be infinity and tan 0 will be 0. Therefore, the graph, when you observe, you can see here, one graph will be moving like this. When x is equal to pi by 2, your graph is moving to infinity. Similarly, tan minus pi by 2, it will be going down. It will be equal to minus infinity. Therefore, one graph we can see here like this. Pi by 2, the function is not defined. Again, between pi by 2 to 3 pi by 2, tan pi will be 0. Therefore, another graph will be like this. But tan 3 pi by 2, it is not defined. It will be infinity. Similarly, the graph is moving like this. So this is the one. If you take minus pi by 2 to 2 pi, this is the shape of the graph. Okay. Therefore, if I ask you one question, you remember we have learned the domain and range in the first chapter, right? Sets, relations, and function. If I ask you what is the domain of sin x, what is your answer? Sin theta. Domain of sin theta. Domain of sin theta or sin x, whatever be that one. What is the answer? What is the domain of sin x? What do you mean by domain of sin x? Domain of sin x means what all value you can give for x, so that sin x should give an answer. Domain, yeah. So domain will be all real number, right? It will be all real number. You see, you can see the graph. From the graph, it is clear. Domain means the value of x. You look at the x-axis. You can give any value for x. That's why yesterday I told you. I can calculate the value sin 10 degree, sin 50 degree, sin 360 degree. Any value I can calculate. So it will give one value. Right? So therefore, the domain of sin x will be all real number R. The domain of sin x will be all real number. What about the range of sin x? Range of sin x Can you tell me what is the range of sin x? Range of sin x means you look at the y-axis always. The domain you look at x-axis and the range we look at the y-axis. So y-axis means you can see here your graph will be mapped to between this point -1 and 1 whatever be the value of x, it can be a value between -1 and +1. Therefore the range will be closed interval -1, 1 closed interval. That means -1 is also included, 1 is also included. Okay, same result is true for cos x also. So domain of cos x will be same graph. So domain of cos x will be your real number. R means real number, and range of cos x will be the
Good evening, sir.
of yes. Range of cos x will be between -1 and +1. So two important observation. One is domain of sin x will be real number. Reason also don't by heart. Just try to understand the reason and study. So whenever I say domain of sin x means look at the graph. Imagine the graph, visualize the graph. The graph will be like this. So when you look at x-axis, if you give any value for x, sin x is defined. Therefore, the domain will be real number. How to find a range? For finding the range, look at y-axis. In the y-axis, so the value will be mapped between -1 and 1. Graph and y-axis. For finding the domain, look at the graph and x-axis. So when you compare the y-axis and the graph, you can see that graph lies between -1 and +1. Therefore, range will be between -1 and 1 for sin x and cos x. Right now, let us see what about the domain and range of tan x. So domain and range of tan x. You can look at the graph here. So this is the graph of tan x. Can you tell me what is the domain of tan x? So this is tan x graph. So what is the domain of? So look at the graph and x-axis where it is defined. That point only can be set. Any idea what is the domain? Domain, is it all real number? All real number it is defined. Look at the graph. Sin x and cos x it is defined for all real number. You can see everywhere it is continuous. There is no break. But when you look at the graph here, is it defined for every value of real number? If it is defined for every value of real number, then you can say the domain will be R. Is it defined for every real number? Yeah, that is correct. That is all a real number excluded some points. That way you can say all real number. This point it is not defined. This point it is not defined. Correct? This point not defined. That means what I can say is all real number excluded these points. What are the points? Pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, 5 pi by 2, 7 pi by 2. To going to the left side, minus pi by 2, minus 3 pi by 2, etc. Therefore, how can I say the domain? Domain I can say is domain is all real number all real number except odd multiple of pi by 2. Odd multiple of pi by 2. All real number. That means I subtract odd multiple from real number. What is the meaning? All real number except odd multiple of pi by 2. Or I can say like this: r minus 2n minus 1 pi by 2. R minus 2n minus 1 pi by 2. What do you mean by 2n minus 1 pi by 2? When you put n equal to 1, you will get a pi by 2, where n belongs to the number. When n belongs to integer, you can say integer, because negative number also will come, no? So n belongs to the integer. So when you put n equal to 1, you will get a pi by 2. N equal to 2, I'll get 3 pi by 2. N equal to 3, 5 pi by 2, etc. Negative number, when you put n equal to minus 1, negative 0, I'll get minus pi by 2. Minus 1, I'll get the minus 3 pi by 2, etc. So all real number except the odd multiple of pi by 2 will be the domain. Is it clear? Please note down. Okay, after doing this one, you can find the range. Find the range of tan x. So first you write the domain, then you can write the range. Okay. Any question, please? Is it clear now, students? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, can you tell me the range of tan x? So, for finding the range, look at the graph and y-axis. Then you can tell me what is the range. Okay, some answer is there. Yeah, that's correct. That means range means it will cover. Look at the range. This is the graph. No, when you look at this graph and y-axis, what will happen? It will cover entire y-axis. Entire y-axis. So all real number. Or entire y-axis means minus infinity to plus infinity. Therefore, the range of y-axis will be all real number. Or another way of writing is you can write minus infinity comma plus infinity. Like that also you can write. Either you can say all real number, or you can say minus infinity comma plus infinity, or like this you can say. I think it is clear, right? So that is the domain and the range of tan x. Now let us see what is the domain and range of cot x. The graph is there. I hope you can help me. You write the domain and range of cot x, looking same, exactly same method. You write it, then after that I will explain. So question is, what is the domain of cot x? And what is the range of cot x? So, okay. Yeah, please. So the domain will be, again, you look at here. When you look at the graph of cot x, graph is already given. 2n minus 1, 5. Okay. So when you look at the graph here, it is not defined pi. Here, when pi it is not defined, then 2 pi it is not defined. Minus pi it is not defined. So when it is a pi, it is not defined. Therefore, what I can say, the domain is all real number except n pi, where n is a integer. n pi, 1 pi, 2 pi. You know what is the reason why it is not defined? Because cot x will be equal to cos x by sin x. Cot x will be equal to, we studied this in 10th standard. Cot x will be equal to cos x by sin x. Therefore, this, when sin x will be 0, cot x will not be defined. When sin x is equal to 0, it is not defined. Where sin x is equal to 0? Sin 0 will be 0, sin pi will be 0, sin 2 pi will be 0, sin 3 pi will be 0, sin 4 pi will be 0. Therefore, when there is a multiple of pi, there this cot x is not defined. In the case of a tan x, it is an odd multiple of pi by 2i. Tan x will be sin x by cos x. Where the cos x is 0, there it is not defined. Therefore, the domain of cot x will be equal to all real number minus n pi, and the range will be, so you can see graph will be, it will cover the entire y-axis. Therefore, the range will be all real number. Is it clear? Any question? Yes, correct. So, the tan x and cot x, domain and range, domain of tan x and range of tan x, and domain of cot x and range of cot x. Again, don't by heart, try to understand why it is not defined. Tan x, what is the why the domain of tan x will be all real number minus odd multiple of pi by 2. The reason is tan x will be equal to sin x by cos x. So where cos x is equal to 0, it is not defined. So cos x is equal to 0 means odd multiple of pi by 2. Because cos pi by 2 0, cos 3 pi by 2 0, etc. Okay. I hope that part is clear. Now two more things. One is sec x and another one is cosecant x. Sec x and cosecant x. So what is the domain of sec x? Domain of sec x. How do you find this? You know that one, sec x will be equal to 1 over cos x. Sec x will be equal to 1 over cos x. Therefore, where cos x is equal to 0, it is not defined. Cos x is equal to 0 means odd multiple of pi by 2, right? Therefore, domain will be all real number minus 2n minus 1 pi by 2. All real number minus 2n minus 1 pi by 2. What is the range? Anybody? I want to get the answer for this. Graph is given to you. What is the range? Range of sec x. What is the range of sec x? All real number. Look at the graph and see whether it covers all real number. What is the range of sec x? Any idea? Anybody? Range range is minus 1 comma 1. First one is okay. So look at the, I told you, look at the graph on y-axis. So here, this portion is covered, this is covered, this is covered, this is covered. So in here, this is covered, this covered, this covered, all this covered. But this portion is not covered. You can see this area not covered. That means in sec x, this area not covered. That means all real number except this point minus 1 comma 1. Or you can write as many way you can write. One way of writing is all real number minus 1 comma 1. What is the meaning? All real number except this. Or you can write as minus infinity comma minus 1 union 1 comma infinity. That means the range will be above 1 and below minus 1. Range will be above 1 and below minus, including 1 and including minus 1. This is very important. Sometimes I ask you, find the solution of sec x is equal to say half. What is your answer? Find the solution of sec x is equal to half. That means for what values of x sec x is equal to half? Can you find the value? For what values of sec x it is equal to half? Any idea? Yes, exactly. Umar replied. Correct. There is no answer for this. Therefore, no real value. No real value. What is the meaning of this? We cannot find any x. We cannot find any x such that sec x will be equal to half. We cannot find any x because the range will be above 1 and below minus 1. I hope this part is clear, right? So the conclusion is the domain of sec x will be r minus the real number minus 2 and minus 1 pi by 2, and the range will be all real number other than minus 1 comma 1. Either you can write this way or you can write this. These are the things. So the last part, what is the domain and range of cosecant x? Domain and range of cosecant x. What is the domain and range of cosecant x? Can you give me the answer to that? So I write the question, domain. What is the domain of cosec x? And what is the range of cosec x? You can give me the answer. So I'll wait for 1 minute. So you can give the answer. Domain will be r minus 2 and minus 1 pi. Range will be minus half plus half. Any other answer? VIT Bala, Gala, I'm not getting any answer from VIT. Shreya, Asta, Sohan, are you there?
Yes, sir, we are there.
Oh, okay, fine. Tell me what is the domain of cosecant x and the range of cosecant x. Ayan, what is the answer? Ayan?
So I'm doing, sir.
Okay. So is the domain. Cosecant x will be, how can you write? Cosecant x will be equal to 1 over sin x. Therefore, the cosecant x will not be defined where sin x will be equal to 0. Because 1 by sin x. So when sin x will be 0, n pi. Therefore, what about the domain of cosecant x? All real number minus n pi. Study like this only. Don't by heart. So whenever I ask you for a domain of cosecant x, how do you think? Cosecant x will be equal to 1 over sin x. First thing, cosecant x will be equal to 1 over sin x. So sin x is in the denominator. When the denominator becomes 0, it will not be defined. Now then think, when sin x is not defined. So sin x is not defined means sin x is equal to 0. Sin x is equal to 0. When sin x is equal to 0, n pi. Pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, etc. Sin x will be equal to 0. Therefore, the domain will be r minus n pi. And regarding the range, he can map the graph with y-axis. So here also we can map the graph. That means you can see that this portion is not covered. That is minus 1 comma 1 is not covered. Therefore, what about the range? All real number except minus 1 and minus 1. So either you can write like this, all real number minus except minus 1 comma 1, or I can write minus infinity comma minus 1 union 1 comma infinity. Like that also I can write. So now we checked all the domain and range of sin x, cos x, tan x, cosecant x, sec x. It's very important. It's not for only for the school examination, board examination. Very important for the competitive examination, because not for this chapter, for other chapters also, this idea should be very useful. So we can summarize. We can summarize now. So you can help me. How can you find the domain and range of trigonometry function? So write it properly. The domain and range of all trigonometry functions. So I will use whiteboard. Not there. Okay, you can write what is a domain and range of all trigonometry function. I think you can see the board clearly, no? Domain and range of trigonometric function. So first we write so here we write sin x. So here we have a domain. Here we have a range. Now itself, please study. I will ask once we complete this table, I'll ask. So what is the domain and range? What is the domain of sin x? All real number. What is the range? Between minus 1 and plus 1. Cos x, it is also same. The domain will be real number. Range will be minus 1 comma 1. That is a range. Then tan x, the domain will be, look at here, tan x is equal to sin x by cos x. So wherever cos x is equal to 0, there is a problem. So what we do, right? R minus 2n minus 1 pi by 2. All real number except odd multiple of pi by 2, where n is a integer, where n is an integer. What is the range? Range will be real number. Similarly, cot x. So cot x will be cos x by sin x. cos by sine. Wherever sine will be 0, there is a problem. Therefore, it will be n pi. So all real number except pi, n pi, 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 81 pi, etc. So n is an integer. What about the range? Range is a real number. Range is a real number. Right? Now, cosecant x. How do you find the domain and range of cosecant x? Cosec x will be equal to 1 over sin x. Cosecant x will be equal to 1 over sin x. So what is a domain? Sin x is equal to 0, there is a problem. Sin x is equal to 0 means n pi. So that you can write r minus n pi. N is a integer. What about the range? All real number. So that you can write minus infinity comma minus 1 union 1 comma infinity. The last one, sec x r minus 2n minus 1 pi by 2. 2n minus 1 pi by 2. And what about the range? Minus infinity comma minus 1 union 1 comma infinity. So this is a summary of the domain and the range of trigonometry function. Any question? You can please write it properly. And if you have any question, you can ask me now. Now look here. Suppose this is x-axis and this is y-axis. I take a point here and O is the origin. I join this. So this is OP. So OP makes some angle with x-axis. Let the angle be say theta. So OP makes an angle theta with the x-axis. Now I draw a perpendicular from P to x-axis which meets the x-axis at the point say M. Now look at here. When you take the cos theta, what is cos theta? Cos theta will be adjacent side by hypotenuse. What is adjacent side? PM. And hypotenuse is OP. What about sin theta? Sin theta will be opposite side by, this is OM. Adjacent side is O, right? It is OM by OP. What about sin theta? Sin theta will be PM by OP. Suppose I take OP, the length as say 1 unit. Unit value. OP will be 1. So what will happen? This cos theta will be equal to OM. And sin theta will be equal to PM. This is very, very important. And you know that whenever you have a coordinate system, we have studied. In the coordinate system, any point is marked using the point x comma y. X means this distance is OM is x and this distance is y. That means OM equal to x and PM equal to y. That means any point can be, any point on the plane can be represented using a trigonometry function. It's another important observation. In coordinate geometry, you know, any point I can mark as say 2, 3. If I mark 2, 3, what is the meaning? This distance is 2 and this distance is 3. That is the meaning, right? So the same point I can represent using a trigonometry function. How? The x value will be the cos theta and y value will be the sin theta. X value will be cos theta and y value will be the sin theta. Any point I can mark like this. Therefore, what will happen? If you take the first quadrant, in the first quadrant, what happens? Sin theta is positive, cos theta is also positive. Therefore, all trigonometry functions are positive in first quadrant because theta is acute here. Theta is acute. Why? Because cos theta will be x value and sin theta will be y value. But when you look at the second quadrant, so if I take any point in the second quadrant, what will happen? X value negative, y value positive. Clear? Therefore, cos theta will be negative and sin theta will be positive in the second quadrant. When you look at the third quadrant, you know that both the x and y are negative. X value also negative, y value also negative. Therefore, cos theta is negative and sin theta is negative in the third quadrant. In the fourth quadrant, what happens? The x value will be positive, y value will be negative. Therefore, cos theta will be positive, sin theta will be negative. You understood? The sign of a trigonometry function. Once you know cos theta and sin theta, you can find the sign of tan theta, cot theta, everything. We know the relation, right? This part is clear. So in the first quadrant, all trigonometry functions are positive. In second quadrant, cos theta is negative, sin theta is positive. Third quadrant, cos theta is negative, sin theta also negative. And in the fourth quadrant, cos theta positive, sin theta is negative. So please complete this one. And I will stop now. We will meet the last hour, no? So please note down and then you can leave. So we can meet at the last hour.